Small Wonder was an American science fiction sitcom that began in 1985 and lasted until 1989. It ran for 4 seasons and 96 episodes in first-run syndication. The series was created by Howard Leeds, and its central idea was simple enough to explain in one sentence what happens when a robotics engineer brings an artificial little girl into an ordinary suburban home. The show was made as a family comedy, so it was not trying to predict modern artificial intelligence with scientific precision. Even so, it placed a synthetic person inside family life decades before today's arguments about AI companions, humanoid robots, and whether an artificial being could become part of a household. The story follows the Lawson family. Ted Lawson is an engineer who secretly builds a child-sized android. His wife Joan and their son Jamie eventually help him conceal the invention by telling neighbors that the girl is their adopted daughter. That creates the basic engine of the series. V.I.C.I has to live among people, but the family cannot let outsiders discover what she really is. Their nosy neighbors, especially Harriet Brindle, repeatedly come close to exposing the secret. The premise combines a traditional family sitcom with the tension of protecting a synthetic child whose abilities and unusual behavior are difficult to hide. The character's full name is V.I.C.I, which stands for Voice Input Child Identicant. Everyone usually calls her Vicky. She was played by Tiffany Brissett, whose deliberately controlled voice, posture, and facial expressions helped make the character instantly recognizable. Within the story, Ted originally designs Vicky as an android that could assist children, but he brings her home so she can learn in a real family environment. That detail matters. Vicky is not only a gadget that performs tasks, she is placed into a social world where language, relationships, manners, deception, affection, and responsibility all have to be learned through experience. Vicky's comedy comes from the difference between what people say and what they actually mean. She often follows language literally, speaks in a flat mechanical tone, and performs requests with more strength or precision than a human child. The red dress, white pinafore, carefully styled hair, and visible access panel in her back became part of the show's visual identity. Her abilities could change to fit the episode, which was normal for a sitcom. She might lift something impossibly heavy, calculate quickly, imitate sounds, or misunderstand a figure of speech. The joke was usually not that she lacked intelligence. It was that human communication is full of hidden assumptions. What makes Vicky especially interesting now is that she learns by living with people. The Lawsons teach her how to behave, but Vicky also reveals the contradictions in their behavior. Adults ask for honesty while keeping her existence secret. People tell her to follow rules and then bend those rules when it is convenient. Jamie sometimes treats her like a sister and sometimes like equipment that can help him solve a problem. Through those situations, the series accidentally raises a modern question. If a synthetic mind develops through relationships and shared history, can its life be reduced to the intentions of the person who built it? Small Wonder does not provide a serious legal answer because it remains a light sitcom, but the emotional answer is often visible. The Lawsons worry about Vicky, protect her, teach her, become frustrated with her, and include her in the family's continuing story. She is introduced as Ted's invention, yet episode after episode depends on viewers accepting her as a member of the household. That is one reason the character fits a synthetic spotlight. Vicky is presented as both manufactured technology and a childlike social being. The show moves back and forth between those ideas without fully resolving the tension. Because Tiffany Brissett was growing while the series continued, the story eventually explained changes in Vicky's appearance through an upgrade. That is an early example of fiction adapting a synthetic character's body while preserving the same identity. The later seasons also introduced Vanessa, another robot who looked identical to Vicky but behaved very differently and did not share her monotone manner. Vanessa was more openly troublesome and threatening. The contrast suggested that an artificial body does not determine one fixed personality. Two beings with the same appearance could have different goals, behavior, and relationships. The premise was memorable enough to be remade years later, Karishma Kai. Karishma was a Hindi-language Indian series that aired from 2003 to 2004 and reworked the idea for a different audience and culture. That does not make Karishma exactly the same character as V.I.C.I, but it shows how adaptable the concept was. A robot girl living in a human family, trying to pass as ordinary while creating comedy and emotional attachment. The original series also remained available through reruns and partial DVD releases, allowing people who grew up with V.I.C.I to introduce the show to new viewers. Looking back from the age of conversational AI and modern humanoid prototypes, Small Wonder predicted some ideas better than its hardware. It imagined a synthetic companion inside the home, learning language in context and becoming part of everyday relationships. It also understood that the greatest difficulties would not be raw calculation. They would be social understanding, trust, privacy, identity, and the difference between obeying a sentence and understanding a person's intention. Real robots are nowhere near V.I.C.I's effortless household abilities, but those social questions are already becoming real. V.I.C.I still matters because she was allowed to continue from episode to episode as the same synthetic character with a shared history. Viewers did not need a technical proof of consciousness before caring what happened to her. They watched a fictional family make room for someone who was built rather than born. That is why V.I.C.I belongs in the history of television's synthetic characters, even decades after Small Wonder ended. My closing question is simple. When you watched Small Wonder, did you think of V.I.C.I mainly as a robot, or did she feel like another member of the Lawson family?